Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, this is News Check, a program that seeks to explore issues shaping the news in the country. And today what we are talking about in studio is the Form 1 selection exercise that kicked off today officially. Earlier, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha did that at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, talking about quite a number of pertinent issues that center around how this process is going to be done. But one thing that stood out from what he said is that it is going to be a free, fair and transparent process, courtesy of what the Ministry of Education has put in place to ensure that each and every learner, including those from vulnerable backgrounds, those from informal settlements in urban areas and those from far-flung counties, actually get an opportunity to also be absorbed in some of these national and prestigious schools. We are discussing that in studio this particular morning, and earlier, before we took the break, gentlemen, we were talking about the 100% transition program, its progress and success rate, and what needs to be done to make it even better, because we all agree it's a good initiative, it's a step in the right direction. But a lot of issues have been raised, and I wanted to link this up with our now next part of the conversation, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. First of all, let's talk about our girls before we move into how COVID even affected the education sector as it is. Let's talk about our girls. During this particular pandemic, we saw the shocking revelations, the headlines that we saw. And right now, I believe even among those candidates who are going to be going to Form 1, there are others who are mothers already, who gave birth. We saw some giving birth during the national examinations. How do we address this menace? Because these headlines, these numbers are people. And when you're talking about children, these are not just people, these are futures, these are families. To impact a life of such a young girl at that level has its own ripple effects that may go for years. How do we address this problem? And where is it even originating from?
I think earlier, outside where we were talking about 100% transition rate. 100% transition rate from primary to secondary school is an objective that the ministry is trying, and everybody, all the stakeholders. But some stakeholders, education stakeholders, have in the past expressed some concern that KCP candidates might fail, and they have failed to report to Form 1 because of various issues like the one you have mentioned. Some of them, thousands of them, drop out because of many issues, and most of them this time because of the pandemic. I know many families have their children drop out of the school because of the pandemic. Others, significantly, number of girls, which you have already mentioned, Madam Achieng, they were pregnant. They became mothers, and some of them were even married. And even some boys, they went out of the school because of drug and the use of drug substances. Others joined informal labor services. Let me come to the girls. And I'll thank, I don't know, is the President or the Minister of Education, that those who are pregnant are given a chance again to go back to school. In the year 2004, I had a privilege of working in Rwanda and for 1 year. And this issue of pregnant school girls being denied a chance or opportunity to go to school, it was not there. It was not there.
In Rwanda?
In Rwanda.
Which year was this again?
That was 2004.
Wow.
What I saw in their education system, they allowed them. Once you go, deliver, come back to school. Even the mothers who were selling sukuma wiki on the road, they were allowed to go to school. And anybody, surprisingly, Achieng, any lady who was doing kuuza hii sukuma wiki on the road, and then she goes to another village, she is not going to be asked to bring a transfer form of what. She just goes to third class and reads. And then the next week, if they migrate to another place, they were allowed. So I think this problem of denying our chance because of the pregnancy is not fair. But let us thank the government that now they are allowed.
They are allowing. I'm coming to you shortly, Jacob. Just allow me to do something here. Remember, this program, we also follow up on some of the events that are currently taking place. And right now, I just want us to link up with something that is happening Odi Mtaani initiative that is currently in it is a campaign that the Odi Mtaani initiative is aimed at nurturing and supporting talent from the grassroots. Let's just look at this particular function and understand more about what is in store for the young people in the country.
And we know the first thing that brings a break in most people is luck. So if you can bridge the gap between luck and availability, I think we've already done half of our duty as human beings. Making this a positive and sustainable contribution to society is a very key aspect for us. Keeping it sustainable, we'd say, is a cost, but for us it's a very welcome cost. Grassroots sports has the potential to meet most, if not all, aspirations that people have in this area. My colleague has just mentioned the Olungas of this world, the Omanyalas of this world. You guys know Omanyala is from Kitale, somewhere, mahali ndani. And if that can grow to where it is right now, is about to represent Kenya and Africa at large, that tells you the aspiration element of this whole thing. And we need to build a platform that can flourish and make the living of everyone possible and easier. This to us is a big commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at a scenario where unique talents are not only about competition or entertainment, but also about potential of those talents, having platforms that are competitive and contribute to their economic well-being. Someone said, once your passion starts feeding you, then you've discovered your purpose. Amaje Arocho. It is for this reason that through this partnership, if you forget everything else, I'll say remember this, that through this partnership with Odongo, we have invested over 5 million Kenyan shillings, and particularly 9,000. 9,000 ni ya puspus. So 5 million ni ya Charles, na mama, na gym, na fitness, lakini 9,000 ni ya puspus. Tusisahau hiyo part. Because tunajua paka iko na 9 lives. So si tunassume tu ngiri moja ya kila life. Ama je Alex ndio? Ama je sa Alex? Si hapo tuko sawa? So we are looking at 5,000 and 9 million. Na pia kuna kitu kingine tunamuongezea hapo, which is a full gym and a car. Also the car, by the way, if I'm not wrong, where is Frank? Frank, you can confirm the car has a car seat ya puspus. Wapi Frank? Ata confirm baadaye, the car also has a car seat ya puspus. So I think we are catered for puspus. Puspus seems to be a big part of Charles's life, Na alipata watoto? Apparently puspus has 2 children. So guys, tuendelee tu kunini, tuendelee kusupport. They are called Zalendo and Chichi. They are old men. They are old men. So Zalendo and Chichi, puspus has 2. Arocho tufanye homecoming ya hizo pusi ama? Wednesday homecoming ya puspus. Tuko sawa, confirmed. Agree, take note. To this end, we are able to not just help him sustain his business, not just help him sustain his life, but also by effect of him affecting his community. Charles made a very specific request. Let me grow from where I am. How often do you hear people saying that? Watu wengi wanajua kiomoka wanaenda mtaa ingine. Yeye alisema nataka kugrow kutoka Runga ndo aweze kugrow na jeshi yake. Na jeshi yako iko hapa? Jeshi ya Charles mkono. Awesome. So he said he wants to grow with his team, and he intimated that he needs this to remain at home. If any man is committed to grow his home, that man deserves respect. Ama namna gani si ndio? So ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to welcome Mr. Charles Odogo to give his remarks. Charles, karibu sana. Power iko.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bwana Dedan. And we appreciate our main man today. Definitely. Hapo sasa, Odi Mtaani.
All right, so that is currently underway at Stanley Hotel right here in Nairobi. ODBET has started a campaign, an awareness campaign. It's called Odi Mtaani Initiative, an initiative that is aimed at nurturing and supporting talent from the grassroots level. There you have it. If you're a young person, talented, and I believe most of us are, this is an opportunity that actually can go a long way for you to thrive in this particular journey. We will be following up that particular, function for you, and we'll be giving you more details about it later on. But in studio, we are talking about the Form 1 selection exercise that kicked off today. And of course, we are also just bringing this conversation into a bigger perspective to look at the education sector and some of the issues that are coming from this particular sector, challenges that we are facing as a country, what needs to be done to ensure that even as we put in place policies and measures and programs to ensure that as many learners as possible have access and a chance to quench their thirst for education, we consider their unique challenges, their unique circumstances, and what they are going through. And that is what we have been doing with my guests in studio. Just to remind you, it's a panel of two gentlemen. From the far right there, I'm having Jacob Kioko, he's an educationist. And also I'm having at the center there, Major Retired Peter Mwithi, a governance and policy expert, also an educationist. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for staying with me. I want us to now continue with what we were talking about earlier. Before we went to that particular live link, we were discussing the teenage pregnancy menace and how it has affected our girls. And Peter, you also brought on board the boys in this conversation. Most of the time, they are left at the back seat when we are talking about teenage pregnancy. I just want us to understand more about how we deal with this menace, because we cannot be talking about access to education for all learners, and yet our girls are facing this. Is it a health or a social crisis, or both, depending on how you look at it? We need to address this issue. And you had, spoken a bit. I just want us to go to Jacob, and then we'll come back to your point.
Yeah. Now, the 100% transition program is not very clear up to this hour. What is 100% transition? Does it extend up to university level, or where does it stop? After class 6, there's junior secondary before you go to senior secondary. Mm-hmm. Up to this hour, it's not clear. Is junior secondary in primary, or is it in secondary? That point is not clear as yet.
Just to clarify on that as you continue, this particular morning, as the CS was launching this particular exercise, he touched on that a little bit and tasked stakeholders, education stakeholders, to begin identifying which of these primary schools ought to be transformed into the junior primary school. So I believe it's a process that has commenced, but I understand your point on that.
Yeah. True. Now, before he said that, before the CS said that, it was dark.
Okay.
Now, it's now clear. We have light at the end of the tunnel. Now, the 100% transition, does it extend up to university level? Or at some level, one can drop? This is another area where we need clarification. Now, touching on the women, or the girls' pregnancy, I'm sure these pregnancies are not virgin pregnancies. I'm sure a male must have played some part. And the male, that is usually the pupils on their peers, is a matter that must be addressed with the seriousness it deserves. Because if we talk about the girl and the girl and the girl and the girl, mm-hmm, without addressing the boy, then we are not tackling the problem in its totality. There is need for complete attitudinal change, that it is not the girl who has the problem. You two who brought about the problem should be blamed, such that the girl does not feel it was my mistake because of my biological build, and then one feels completely out of society. Mm-hmm. So the story here should be, the girl should be encouraged not to feel stigmatized, and the boy should be encouraged not to make his sister to feel the way she does. Because ultimately, when they are all grown, they are now mature. What happens? Both parties would want to get married. And we have so many girls who have not married, but they have children. And the same problem. Here the boy wants to get married. Is the boy now, that is the training that we should have. Is the boy, are you ready to get married to a person who has a child? So the way you would want not to do that, feel it for your sister. So please do not feel like you have done it and you get away with it. You are not going to get away with it, because later in society, later in life, in your society, there is going to be that problem. So you are a contributor to a serious social problem, and you must not be allowed to continue doing it. This is the attitudinal change
that
which we must have, because if we continue talking about the girl, she's stigmatized. Okay, she is stigmatized, but it is her biological makeup. It is not by will, it is by her biological makeup. Because if the reverse happened to the boy, what will happen?
It would be the same situation. but as I come to you, so you say the girl should not feel stigmatized, she should not be victimized for this, and the boy should not be allowed to get away with it. But why are we victimizing the boy already? Is it always the boy's fault? What about the so-called Romeo and Juliet affair?
Well, the thing is,
the voluntary agreement, because it's there. I mean, the boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Why is it that the boy is always the one to carry the blame in this arrangement? I agree with you. We have to talk to our children, but how do we deal with the Romeo and Juliet affair?
The issue is attitudinal change, and part of this is as a result of again the economic problem. The girl is vulnerable in that she has issues that she must buy which are not available at home, and there is that natural weakness. And there it is, she is enticed into the wrong thing because of poverty.
To survive.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So it's not even just the boy, sometimes it's even a man, an adult who a male. So it's not just a boy.
I think, Madam Achieng, if you read the face of our CS today, he was very categorically insisting that punishment should be meted on those people who prey on schoolgirls. And he called them hyena.
He has been very passionate about this subject.
He called them hyena, and this is a new phenomenon. Previously, before we embarked on the 100% transition, a girl would get pregnant and it drops off completely because of the stigma. Nobody follows that girl to go back to school. But these days, they are allowed now to go back to school. But as we were discussing earlier, Achieng, you remember, we agreed that there is a stigma. That you are also telling me that even the infrastructure of those pregnant girls in schools is a taboo. Because the desk, the protruding of the changes, the body changes is a problem. The maternity dress, which I think the Minister of Education should go a bit further and elaborate. Although we have agreed the young girls who are pregnant to go back to school, how do we mitigate the challenges that they face, the daily challenges from the stigma of their peers, the teachers themselves who need education actually, the society at large? You understand? But it will come slowly, and things will work. But the Minister of Education should come up very clearly, bringing the education. I don't know about the new curriculum, how it is being pegged with the sex education in our schools, because sex education is very important, and this should include all the members of the society, the kanisa, the churches, the mosques, to educate them that, okay, as much as it's a problem, but it should be mitigated in one way spiritually. The law, I don't know what the law, because in my village I saw some of them when they were pregnant, the parent must report to the teacher and then report to the local police station, and sometimes I didn't like it. The child is taken to the police station to go and explain what happened. And they even sought the boy. Even the boys these days, they're taken to the police station. And that also brings a stigma again. You
and
understand?
Fear,
so I think
fear of unknown.
Yeah, fear of unknown. I think that, and if the parents do not report, which is also a good idea, about keeping their teenage girls who are pregnant at home, they are also, I don't know what the law says about it, but these days they are supposed to report. If they don't, they are liable again to the court. I think the Minister of Education should go a bit further to try and bring out things very clearly. What do we do with this, rather than bringing them out there in the airspace?
I like those points you're raising, and just in the interest of my viewer, because you mentioned some very fundamental issues, maybe this can help inform policy, inform decision making going forward. And I was sharing with you gentlemen earlier that I got an opportunity to actually just follow up this trail of teenage pregnancy in the country. This is during this COVID-19 season, and traveled to Bungoma, Siaya in Kisumu County, and discussed with a few girls. Some of them were not even planning to go back to school, and talking to them, issues that they were raising, like you were saying, Peter, they were telling me, yes, the government has given us that go ahead to go back to school and resume our studies, but if you go back to school, there's still that stigma. We are still looked at as that dark spot, that wrong company. Parents don't want us to associate with their children anymore. They feel we will, for lack of a better term, spoil them. When we go to school, teachers see us as people who've not come to study, but we've come with other motives. So they keep on telling us, reminding us of our pregnancy throughout our education journey. So they opt to stay home. Others decried of that outfit, the uniform they use for school. It's not maternity friendly, and they're not comfortable in it. They would even like an opportunity where they can be allowed to go in civilian clothes for that duration. Others say the desk, as your belly is becoming bigger by the day, it is not accommodating you, and you start feeling like you're in the wrong place. Even your peers would start mocking you and telling you you do not belong here, go home, you're a parent. So such issues need to be addressed. Even if we're creating spaces for our learners, how are we looking at their unique challenges, what they are going through, their unique circumstances, so that even if we're giving them these opportunities, then they're still able to thrive under those unique circumstances. And I believe these are points we can talk on, go on and on about. And even I talked to a teenage father who, my curiosity was, why is it that the boy is always running away? The boy is always not in the picture. And he was telling me that one would want to be part of the baby's journey, but the stigma, the shame, the victimization, you want to be arrested. Most of the time they say you defiled the girl, and sometimes it's not even the issue. Maybe she was your girlfriend. It was voluntary. So this is why many boys shy away from being in the picture during that particular time. So maybe even parents and society, we should rethink how we are addressing this issue, how we are dealing with these cases of teenage pregnancy going forward. But let's leave that aside and, gentlemen, move now to another subject. And I wanted us to talk about COVID-19 and the education sector generally. We know that even as we speak right now, the academic calendar has really been shaken up and turned upside down, and it may take us years to come back to normal, the way the academic calendar used to go initially. But generally speaking, what do you think is the biggest hit that the education sector has taken from this COVID-19 pandemic, Jacob? Well,
I think the biggest hit has been the disruption in what we are used to as, say, this is the beginning of the year in January. Everybody, parent, pupil and teacher, and also the Minister of Education is focused on reopening of schools in January. It's the beginning of the term, of the year. Now we are in June and we are in term 2 of the school calendar. Now, the problem here is we have not quite adjusted into focusing on that, and the parent, most of the parents do not have the financial muscle to pay for their obligations. The other day, the Minister for Education was saying parents must pay. Okay, I agree, they must pay, but the money is not there.
But he said some capable parents are already taking advantage of this opportunity, of this window that the government provided.
Precisely. Yeah. We are all human beings, and we are all feeling the heat from COVID-19, as a result of which, if there is an opportunity which is not illegal, why not make use of it, if you can? But the issue here is, again, my point goes back to the economy. If we were all enabled to pay our fees, our obligations, then the issue that the minister cited will not be there, because responsible people with the capability will pay. But those who are not able have a real problem. Their problems could be genuine, that the money is not there, and I know I have an obligation of paying fees for my child, but reality is the money is just not there. And that is the bottom line. The money is just not there. Those who are taking advantage, of course, are not scrupulous people. Those are unscrupulous people. But besides the unscrupulous people, the genuine Kenyan who actually wants to meet his obligations to the school and the state, but he is not able. That is where the real challenge is. The COVID-19 thing has made a lot of people lose their jobs, and businesses have gone down and others under, and the schools themselves, the institutions, also have had their own unfair share of the COVID-19 problem. And the way out is not to continue discussing it. The way out is to come up with a program or programs. What is the way forward? And that is what is most key. So,
before you go to the way forward, because that is something I want us to explore next, I just want us to see how bad the situation is. COVID-19 has really affected several sectors, and today we are talking about the education sector. So in the interest of fairness, just allow me, Peter, also just chip into this particular question. If you look at the education sector overall and just address how this pandemic has affected the sector and what it has brought forth about it. What are we learning about our sector, courtesy of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Here we are talking about the effects of the COVID-19. It has had a lot of impact on many sectors. When we narrow ourselves to the education, as my colleague has said, most of the parents lost jobs. So the question is, where could they get the finance to take their children to school and pay for whatever is needed by those schools? Let us also not remember that the ed teachers in those schools, specifically the boarding schools, they also want, how can they run the school? There's no food for the children, so that is also an impact. And I think our CS brought that issue of, if your child, if you are a parent, you are not meeting your obligation, the child should go home. I think he wanted to cushion the ed teachers who have a huge problem in keeping those children there, and yet they are supposed to have food and all other necessary needs.
So we pushed the government to the wall with our lack of sincerity.
The problem is again, I would like again to go to the corruption. Remember, when we had this problem of COVID, there was some money which was given out to mitigate these things. Now, the question is, how much money did it go to our education institutions so that they can cushion them? That is the question. Secondly, the private schools. And I really wondered, because some, as we are talking, Madam Achieng, right now, there are some private schools which have closed. And yet these schools were subsidizing the education which is supposed to be provided by the government. They were left behind. Nobody bothered about them. They are still closed. The teachers, you remember there was a problem of the private teachers, which is a huge number in this country. They lost jobs. How did the government help them? They were own teachers. They are Kenyan citizens. They're supposed to be helped. I do not know what other governments did to the private teachers in other countries. But to me, I think they were supposed to have been given some little money from the government so that they can also do what? Remember, there were teachers as much as there were parents. They are the children also to do. So that is also an impact which should have been looked at. It was really forgotten. But to me, I think the big question is here, our priorities. Now, the COVID COVID subsistence, which was inside the budget, was 14 point something billion shillings. You remember the Kenyans really cried and said, this is a huge amount of money that we were given to mitigate the COVID. Where did it go? I'm sure if the proper plan was done to give Minister of Education some little amount of money, I think we should not have a big problem. But all in all, the COVID-19 had a lot of impact in the education sector, like other sectors, but the money, the way it was channeled, it was not proper. We would not have felt the impact as we are feeling now. It was misappropriation of those funds.
Apart from the economic impact, also one of the things that I see as a big impact is the closure of schools for almost 8 months. That really, as a teacher, correct me if I'm wrong, affects the learning curve of these youngsters. Also, the teenage pregnancy menace we are talking about here, it came with a lot of social consequences, this COVID-19 pandemic. But just to address something you raised, Jacob, you're representing private schools here. I don't know, just to address what he brought on board, did the government address this issue? Did you feel cushioned? What was something done? Was there an allocation, or are plans there to do that for private schools?
It was very, very, very unfortunate because not a single dime was given to any private school. You exist the way you began, and up to this hour, it's your shrewdness in business which will make you continue being in business. Although we are actually educating Kenyans, we have been relegated into the oblivion. And, you know, at one time, the position was that it is the parent who chose to take his or her child, to a private school, foot the bill, and that's it. That position has not changed up to this hour. So the impact on private schools at all levels was heavily negative, and it continues to be as negative as it was before COVID-19, because actually even there before there was some discrepancy in the selection of Form 1 regarding a Kenyan from a private institution and a Kenyan from a public institution. I think that is what the minister is trying to correct now, because it was there before. And the impact, the general impact on COVID-19 has been very heavy on private schools, as it has been on other sectors of the economy. So, by the grace of God, some private schools are still running, and we hope the COVID-19 pandemic prong is going to calm down so that we can revert to where we were before it came on board. But like all other sectors of the economy, we were badly hit.
Yeah, true. All right. So we want to recover. We want to borrow lessons, gentlemen. We want to move on, because this is the reality. COVID has come with its own fair share of challenges in the education sector. What do you propose is the way forward? You are just about to do that, Jacob.
Yes.
What is this formula that is going to work?
Yes.
Because we need to move on, and our learners need to also continue with their learning journey. So what do we do so that we absorb the shock?
Absolutely that. This is my specialty area. As I've said, I am an innovator and have developed an innovation which enables a country to raise investment capital from its own local resources instead of waiting for foreigners to come and invest, to create jobs, to set up factories so that people get jobs, and to stabilize generally in the economy. It also helps the state to raise in more revenue than is possible at the moment. So, in a nutshell, I don't want to talk too much on that. It's too long for me to explain every detail. So the issue here is, it is common knowledge to us all that COVID-19 is a two-pronged pandemic. One is medical and the other one is economic. Now, the developed economies of the world have developed vaccines which seek to trim the medical prong of COVID-19. Now, Kenya, through this innovation, and it's a patented innovation, has developed the Dugu innovation which seeks to trim the economic prong of COVID-19. Now, with the support of the governments of those countries who developed the vaccines, the WHO, that is the World Health Organization, has accredited the vaccines so developed as the solution to the medical prong of the pandemic. Now here, and that's why I'm calling upon the government of Kenya to observe its constitutional obligations as stipulated in Article 40, Section 5 of the Constitution, to support, promote, and protect the intellectual property rights of the people of Kenya, and support this innovation, lobby the WTO, that is the World Trade Organization, to accredit this innovation as the solution to the economic prong of COVID-19. That will be of immense benefit to this nation, and the economy of the country will, because the entire world will now converge on us for training, advice, and consultations. The revenue the government is going to raise from that will be enough not only to finance our national budget, but also to pay off our bloated foreign debt.
All right. All right.
So the key issue here is, please may the government of the Republic of Kenya lobby the World Trade Organization to accredit this innovation, and the innovation details are already with the World Trade Organization, which is the custodian of all world patents. And the innovation was patented on the 26th of March 2010, so it's about 20 years old.
All right.
And all that we need, and that's why I'm emphasizing this, pardon me for overemphasizing this,
Yeah.
It's very important that if the government of the Republic of Kenya, today is Tuesday the 15th, lobbied the WTO, and this innovation were accredited by the WTO, then tomorrow, the 16th, the economic situation of the country will change dramatically as the economies of the countries who developed the vaccines has, without a shadow of doubt, changed.
All right. Well said, Jacob. An option on the table, so we hope that will go somewhere. Yes.
My take on this, Madam Achieng,
Yes.
when this pandemic came in, I thought the government did a small mistake here. We did not initiate our local traditional medicine men. You remember Tanzania, the former head of state, Magufuli, initialed and talked to the people to take ndimu. Not ndimu. As my colleague has said, it's a medical issue. Yeah, lemons. And all of a sudden in Kenya, lemons went up. I also have a shamba of lemons. I sold them also. Now, we did not give a chance to our local traditionalists, to our local nutritionists. We did not give them a chance. We over-dependent, even by information from outside. I saw our health secretary, Kagu. All the time he was referring to what they are doing there. This is a phenomenon, and I'm very sure if we had initiated our local healers here, we have herbs. In fact, these vaccines, you'll be surprised that the content comes from the herbs from China, whatever they are doing research. We neglected the research of our local people here in this country.
But with the interest,
that is also a mistake.
Yeah,
we should have initiated them to do research, tell us what is happening here, and we should have moved along with our partners of the World Health Organization, as my colleague is saying.
All right. I almost disagreed with you there on looking at our local, herbalists.
Yeah.
at that particular time, this pandemic caught everyone unaware, and we were still learning.
But they were not given
Everyone
a chance
was still learning on the go.
We thought about Wazungus there.
When you said research, then I sort of like agreed with you, because it's a journey, and it's something that really needs, a lot of research to understand the virus, how it mutates, what needs to be done. And even the scientists and the experts agreed that even them, they are overwhelmed. They are still trying to learn this particular pandemic.
Agree with me, the problem we have in this country, we are still having colonial mentality that nothing good can come out of us. We must depend on the West for anything, for our solution. And I'm sure our youth, if we manage to bring our youth on board, they are very, very innovative in all sectors, in health, in education, in what they are doing on the field of running, athletics, music. You can see they are very potential, but our government is just ignoring them, either by intent or by mistake. I just don't understand. But if we have given our medicine, as I know you will not like to buy that sort of line that but I think if we had given them a chance to come and do their own traditional research, bring us the food, bring us the medicine, go to the forest, they should bring us what they think can mitigate this, we would have gone ahead, and maybe we would not have lost many people who went with the COVID-19.
COVID is still here with us, Peter. So it's
then
still
the government should now think of them.
It's still a work in progress. The journey still continues.
Because, madam, we are here.
The door is not closed yet.
We are shaping the opinion of our citizens.
Yeah, true.
Then by that, let them bring on board. I don't know what the association of these traditional healers, whether they brought this on board, I don't know.
All right. I'd like us to just leave that at that, because it's a topic that can bring mixed reactions and a lot of controversy, if you agree with me. Still, a lot of research needs to be done. Certification, I believe before a medicine is approved, there has to be a process for it to be taken through. So
you're not being controversial.
Let's leave that subject. Kindly, gentlemen, allow me. We're not going to be talking about that. All right. So I want us to look at what else do we do for our learners, because when COVID came, we saw what happened in the working environment. We saw what happened in the business environment. Sort of everything was closed down suddenly. And other careers, I believe, just went under the carpet just like that, courtesy of what COVID did. Should we rethink our learning, our education system, our career path, how even we formulate some of these things, so that in the event we are faced with such, we do not have to shut down completely. We still remain relevant. Is there something that can be done to that effect?
Yes, I believe there is. There is a lot that can be done, and everything will narrow down to research. We cannot wake up one morning and say, let us have all that which we have known to be the way forward. We need to do a lot of research. And that research, modern day research, it must be modern day research. We cannot revert to our ancestors and, go by what they knew to be the best. Things change, and things have changed. And that is why, Mom and my colleague, I'm here very emphatic. That research cannot take place in a vacuum. That research needs a lot of financing. And that research, both social, economic, as well as political, all those areas, 3 areas, need a lot of research. And without the money to carry out that research, we are not making a headway. There is a lot that we have learned, we have seen, and we have not learned enough. So we need to delve into the depths of what is required to be done, and that can only translate into, let us start serious research in these areas where we think we need to improve, or where we need to understand more of what is happening around us. And the only solution is to have the funds, the government to have the funds, because no matter how much we push the government, when the economy cannot afford it, it's a futility. And no matter who is in office, as long as the money is not there, and it is not my making that the money is not there, it is a futility. The only thing, according to me, is to come up with projects And this is one such project which will generate funds to enable the government to fund those areas where there is need for funding and adequately. Because funding is one thing, adequate funding is quite another. So the issue here is, no matter how long we spend time on it, without coming up with something tangible to say tomorrow you are out of a job today, but tomorrow here is the project which is going to give you a job. All other stories will come after you have had food on the table. And that is what is critical.
That is the most important thing. How do we ensure that Kenyans can be able to sustain themselves?
Yes.
Let's begin there.
Yes.
I like that. Peter, what do we do?
What do we do? We know what
we closed schools, we closed businesses, we closed everything. How do we ensure we don't close down again?
This is a very serious issue, and I thank you very much for bringing it so that we can have a conversation and try to shape the opinion of our viewers out there. I think the government should invest a lot on technology. You remember during the campaign of our president, the first time, he said he would have, how many, was it computers to our children? Do we have computers to our children? Do we have some schools somewhere in Turkana that they have light, electricity? Those are the questions we should have. That's why I'm saying we should improve very much on the technology. Secondly, we should improve on our infrastructure. Now, the Ministry of the Treasury is not disbursing the funds for CDF. How else will those classes? And if you go to our public schools, it's not a shame to say it. If you go to our public schools, unlike private schools, you'll find a class which is supposed to have 40. It is over 60, over 30. And you stated when we began this conversation that in some schools, you went and found they are studying on the outside.
And the trees.
You see?
We saw them even in the
government must put its foot out there by improving our infrastructure. Another area is teachers. How do we motivate our teachers? Especially when we have this new curriculum. You found out last year before even the COVID, there were so many strikes. Our education system was disrupted by the strikes of teachers wanting to be given salaries, what have you. The government should look at motivating our teachers. Another thing is, and I appreciate the government also, I think it is funded the medical bills for our students, I think. I think there is
there's something to that effect.
That's a very good. And the stakeholders who are in trying to work together in unity with the government, they should also be considered to be given some subsidies, especially the private schools. The private schools, as much as they are doing business, they are educating this person who is coming to do something for our country. So the stakeholders who are there, the government should think about them. In fact, it can be thought of having something from our budget. Understand? All in all, we should unite together and remember, there is no nation which can prosper development-wise when its citizens are not educated. And when I'm talking about education, it's proper education, quality education, which can enable them to solve their own problems. Not education for the collar jobs. You understand? Education that is geared, its curriculum is geared to solving the social problems that its citizens have.
All right. I believe that's the bigger picture for the competency-based curriculum. That's what we are trying to address as a country. About the infrastructure, some good news from the CS this morning is he said that the Ministry of Education received an allocation of 1.9 billion shillings. This is going to be, spent on chairs and desks for primary and secondary schools. And when he was saying that, he actually, that is when he brought out the point of, stakeholders to identify which primary schools will be transformed into junior primary schools, so that this can be factored in this chair and desk program as they allocate this particular funds. But this is something that is on the pipeline. I just want us also to talk about how do we ensure that even as we come back, even as our learners go back to school, you remember there was that concern that was raised even today about those from vulnerable, backgrounds. There's always that issue of unfair competition, that you find that a learner has been studying under very tight and unfriendly learning environments, and they're expected to compete at par with somebody who has really had it, good with them in their education journey. And here they have to really compete for these same schools, same, facilities. How do we ensure that we level this so that we do not leave any learner behind?
Like Madam Achieng,
somebody has been studying under trees in some county, and they are sitting for the same national examination. During the COVID-19 season, somebody was studying online. They had online classes. Another person, they don't even have electricity in their village. And then you expect these two people to compete.
I think now, when we look at the 2010 Constitution, which is a devolved unit, which gives us the devolved unit to the counties, the county governors, the county bosses there should work very hard in trying to bring the funds to the education. This is 2021. There's no reason why we can give to anybody that a Kenyan student is learning under a tree. I don't know what reason. So our bosses out there in the counties should work very, very hard and ensure that they place the infrastructure that is needed. There is also another vulnerable group, Madam Achieng, that we should also factor in this discussion: the disabled or the special needs. I'm aware that there are 32 special needs of secondary school capacity, which have about 1,453 students. And these are classified as national schools. These are not enough. We have many students in this country who are disabled, and they are there. Sometimes you will find they are handicapped in hearing, but they are taken to special schools. I don't know. The government should work very, very hard to integrate these students, plus the infrastructure. I know one school in Vika, which is being headed by the Salvation Army. It's doing a good job. The government supplement this, and let us not leave them behind. Let us put them on board by recognizing them and putting the infrastructure that is needed for them.
Yeah. A word on that, Jacob, perhaps?
Yes. All said and done, and my colleague and you too agree with me, more funds are needed to assist those who are less fortunate, learning under trees, the disabled, and all that. And the bottom line comes to, does the government have the money to finance the very good projects you are here highlighting? The bottom line here is, let us think outside the box as a government, as a nation, and develop ways of raising revenue to meet our obligations, as you are here suggesting, that here are special children, special Kenyans. They have special needs. We need a good school with the right infrastructure. Does the government have the money to put that infrastructure for that special need? That is the key question. Now, no matter how much we push the government to do what we think is right, without the government having the funds to do that, it's like a parent being pushed by a child, I want a suit and I want a suit, when the parent doesn't have the money to buy that suit. No matter how hard the child pushes, and no matter how much that parent loves that child, if the funds are not there, they are just not there. So my discussion here and elsewhere is, may we lobby the government to value, to factor in ideas, like we are now, giving out ideas of its citizens, not to brush them off, but to value what every citizen says, because that could be the magic word. That on adopting this, you are there. You get the solution to the problem, because here what hurts us most is the inability economically to finance that which we would want financed. That is what is most critical.
And
All right.
Achieng, to add on,
As we wind up,
as we wind up, I think this is a very good conversation. And as we have enlightened, we discussed about the pandemic, the effects of pandemic of HIV. I think the government, because the parents are being, are really feeling it, If the government want to caution the parents who have children going to school and they cannot afford, I think the best way, the money which has been allocated to mitigate the COVID, should be paid to those companies which are giving food. What those parents need right now, because they don't have a job, is unga to go down, cooking oil to go down, bread, fuel to go down, so that whatever kibarua they do, they can have money to take their children to school.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for creating time. I know it's a conversation we can have and keep going on and on about, but that's where we stop at today. We'll be picking it up as it continues to develop. Today, the Form 1 selection exercise kicked off officially, launched by the Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, earlier this particular morning. We've come to the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for choosing KBC Channel 1 and for watching News Check. My name is Serfine Achieng. Coming up is Tamrini, the Swahili version of the program. Do stand by for that.